My next guest tonight is Pat Geoghegan from Cappagh Farmers Support Group, and I have known Pat now for about 15 years. Himself and his wife Nuala are tireless campaigners, and indeed they have been very hard done by the state. Back in the 1990s, RTE did an expose on animals and cattle dying in the fields along the Shannon estuary around Askeaton. There was a massive outcry across the country at that time, and it led to an EPA investigation. And as part of that EPA investigation, the health board took blood samples from the Geoghegan family. And it's there now that I'm going to take up the story with Pat. Pat, you're very welcome to Centre Ground.
Hi Anna, how are you doing?
Now Pat, perhaps you'll take up the story where yourself and your family provided blood samples for that EPA investigation into animal health in the Shannon estuary area.
Well, back in the 1997 to 1999, and there was an inquiry set up by the state. The Department of Agriculture were investigating the animal problems on the farm, the EPA regarding emissions, and you had the health board for human health. And like, we were in an awful state at the time because our livelihood had been destroyed, our health had been destroyed, and so were our animals. And we were delighted that the state took interest and set up this investigation, but we soon realised that the state wasn't on our side, it was on the side of the industry. Because during that investigation, the EPA had made public statements that the problems were gone when they came to Askeaton. That was not correct. The problems were so bad on our farm, it was unbelievable. Our animals were being burned by caustic, they were inhaling it, their airways were being damaged, their lungs were being damaged, they had ulcers in them. There was cows that were aborting. There was calves that were dead in the womb of the cows. The smell out of them was unreal. And our trees was being burned. Everything was being burned. Our health problems were getting worse. My wife, Nuala, suffered 3 miscarriages during it. I remember one of the worst days in our life was we found the smell in the yard. She had already gone into our late doctor and she was told that she was pregnant. Like, the news was unbelievable. We were delighted. 4 days after being told that, I found her on her knees next to the hay barn after inhaling something. The pain in her stomach was unreal. And a week later, the scan was done and the baby was gone. And we looked for help from everyone in the system. They played the fool in it as if they didn't know what to do. The EPA came out to our farm. They didn't want to know. They wouldn't even look down at the industry in case that they'd lay blame to it. They tried to blame us for our problems, what we were using in the milking machine, cleaning it up. They even blamed if there was a plane in the area. You know, they couldn't rule anything out, but they couldn't rule the industry in question as being the problem. Now, during that as well, we said we'd give in samples. The health board didn't want to know about getting any samples. So we said, look, why not take in samples and see what's in them, see are we telling the truth? You know, we're trying to protect our family. Our daughter at the time, Amanda, suffered huge problems. She collapsed in the field one day, pains in her joints, we had to lift her, took her into the regional hospital. There was 5 vials of blood taken from her. There was blood samples taken from me before a suspected heart attack that I got from the inhaling pollution, and same from my wife. Like, we gave in 20 samples in all, and there was blood, urine, hair, nasal swabs, everything we gave that we could give after every episode of pollution during the Askeaton investigation, and we were told that they were being tested and they had gone away and everything. And then we got a letter from Dr. Kevin Kelleher, who headed up the investigation one day in '99 to tell us that all our samples were gone. Like, the evidence that we had against this company, which the state needed to prove if pollution was involved in the area, suddenly gone missing. Now,
okay, so if I could just move you on quickly, Pat. The EPA published a 200-page report, said that the farmers were to blame, that the pollution in the area, there was no pollution in the area that was contributing to the health of the animals. And then there was a public meeting in Askeaton, a very heated public meeting in Askeaton. Tell me about that.
Well, Dr. Kevin Keller, who headed up the Askeaton investigation on the health side, has said that our samples were not part of the investigation. Like, they couldn't be part of any other investigation, only the Askeaton investigation, because there were evidence taken in. Like, they did everything possible to break away the samples that they were gone missing, and that was it. They moved to grant their license, and that's the way they kept it. We went to Micheál Martin when he became Minister for Health, and Micheál Martin said yes, he'd investigated the whole lot, and we met him two to three times in the Dáil, and we were getting an investigation into an internal inquiry that, thanks to Justine McCarthy at the time, who forced the Health Board to investigate themselves. So it was hard to know which one the cover-up was worse, whether it was the samples going missing or how the internal inquiry investigated the missing samples and the people involved. But we found out later that the internal inquiry that Minister Martin had proposed for the three-man commission had been stopped. And we protested. We're 20 years at it, Anna. We went up to the Health Board. We protested outside it. And we are not stopping, because we know there's a cover-up. There's high officials within the Department of Health being protected. And Minister Martin at the time, and his Taoiseach now, I would call on him now to make a statement in regard to certain meetings that he had and why there wasn't any minutes kept of those meetings, and who he met to decide to change and stop us getting our public inquiry, which we should have got at the time. And we will still fight, Anna. We need to fight not alone for ourselves, but for the people of Askeaton and for other communities like in Cork, like in Limerick, because this is what's going to happen. There's a protocol out there, it's called the Askeaton Protocol. So Derry Chambers said there tonight, or with Chase or whatever, if that incinerator goes ahead, the same with Clare, these are the same people are going to be on the bus that'll come into your area and they will cover up no matter what.
Okay, so Pat, I'm intimately involved with your case and I know it very well. Just to make it very clear to our listeners, the internal investigation conducted by the Health Board into the missing samples said that they went missing before they went to the laboratory, but then under Freedom of Information, Pat and Nuala got documentation to show that the results of the samples were discussed internally within the Health Board after they came back from the laboratory. So this would contradict the findings of that investigation into the missing samples, and it was arising from that Pat then approached Micheál Martin when he was Minister for Health in 2003, I think it was, to calling for an inquiry, and he called for an inquiry when Leo Varadkar was Minister for Health, and more recently Dr. Harty, the independent TD for Clare, has called for Simon Harris to conduct a public inquiry into the missing samples. Simon Harris when he was Minister for Health. So Pat, just to finish up now, you live quite close to Aithneach Alumina. Tell our viewers a little bit about Aithneach Alumina.
Where they produce alumina and they leave a waste behind them is called red mud. There's 450 acres of it. It's 140 times the size of Croke Park. It's open to the elements. This 50 million tons of toxic waste, just sections of it just blows into the air. Getting back to Derry Chambers there, Limerick County Council granted planning permission at the time of Frank Dunlop was involved, and they granted permission without 170 acres of the first pond never been lined. So that means that the toxic waste has been seeping into Shannon since 1983. Now, if I was to tell you now, is the problem gone? No, Anna, it's not gone. It's as bad as ever. We can't walk on our farm. We get caught for breath. It burns our throat. You have to stop because you think you're getting a heart attack, and I've got a heart attack from it already. And the problem is these people have been protected by the state. And once you're protected by the state, you can get up in the morning and you can do absolutely whatever you like to do. And you can pollute, and it means nothing anymore of human health. They think nothing of it.
Okay, Pat. Maybe just to finish up now, Stephen might be able to bring up a video. It was actually shot from the air that will give us an aerial view of the mud ponds adjacent to Ahnish Alumina. How many acres did you say, Pat?
And there's 450 acres in total. And if you look at the pond closest to the plant has 170 acres of that never lined. So can you imagine? And when people come in on planes to Shannon, they look down on it and they can't believe what they're seeing, that there is a toxic waste like this in Ireland. We don't have a green image anymore. The EPA has destroyed that. The whole government has destroyed that. And I don't think we're ever going to get it back. We certainly won't get it back in West Limerick. And this red mud may now be taken into Limerick and put into an incinerator there, because that is one of the products that's going to be used in there is red mud. So they definitely won't bring it in from some other country when they have it down the road. And we know what that red mud is going to do to the people of Limerick.
Yes, so what you're referring to there is the proposal to incinerate that in Irish cement, in the Irish cement plant, and that's the issue that we have been talking to Claire about earlier. Well, thank you so much, Pat. We'll be coming back to you in a little while.